Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Self-Knowledge Lectures. Today we have our lecture number 29 of the Phase A of the Self-Knowledge course. And we'll be talking today about the law of the pendulum, which is like one of the 48 laws that govern the physical world. And for us that are on this path of self-knowledge, knowing this law is very important because it will allow us to understand how we can really reach the truth about anything and how we can reach the truth that is within ourselves. We are going to see today that most of the times, we are not able to find the truth because we are most of the time swinging in this or because of this pendulum law, we are on one extreme or the other in any situations in relation to our inner pendulum. And you'll see that by understanding this law and how it is handled both in the external world and in our internal world, we will be able to find the truth about anything and the truth within ourselves. So this is the objective of today's lecture, to know how this law works, how to transcend it, and how to get to the truth. Let's start by talking a little about what the pendulum is. You know, those clocks that all clocks had that mechanism with that pendulum, which is a weight that was hung from a fixed point, so that it can swing, freely. Especially a rod with a weight at the end that used to regulate the mechanism of these clocks. And when this swinging movement was there functioning, the clock was functioning also. And actually, it is interesting that we can get to see one of these clocks and that we can get to reflect on this swinging movement of the pendulum. And because this movement is very significant, since it makes us reflect about how absolutely everything in this life moves according to this movement, according to this law of the pendulum. In this life, everything ebbs and flows. Everything rises and falls. Everything waxes and wanes. Everything comes and goes according to this wonderful law. Actually, this law teaches us that everything goes from one extreme to another. And if we get to understand this law is teaching us that the truth is not in either of these extremes. So this law of the pendulum is constantly taking us to experience one extreme and the other, to go and try to attach ourselves to grab one side of the pendulum, just to take us with that same force, with that same strength to the other pole, so that we can experience the other extreme until one day we get, by having experienced both extremes, we get to reflect and we get to find the truth that is in the middle, in the center. For example, in the lecture number 8 of this course, we were studying two laws that in which we can see how this pendulum movement is clearly experienced, and where the laws of the evolution and the involution. There we see that everything oscillates, that everything is subject to the swing of time, that everything evolves and devolves or involutes. And that law of the pendulum comes to teach us that this process of rising and falling, of growth and decrease, is permanent in everything. it doesn't stop. Actually, in ancient times, there was still no such a dogma of evolution that has led many people to think that the human being has been developing through an evolutionary process, and that this evolutionary process will lead the human being to become, just by mere action of time, a Superman. But actually, the ancient sages perfectly understood how the law of the pendulum works, as everything that evolves enriches, it peaks, you know, its peak. Inevitably, at that point begins its process of involution. And we can observe this in the same civilizations that have existed on Earth. We can observe how, for example, Egypt emerged with all its power and became a civilization that reached, great levels of development. You can see that in history. However, when they reached the highest point of development, a continuous and progressive process of decline began, and undoubtedly they went to the other side of the pendulum. Nothing remained right now of that majestic civilization but ruins. And more than, when Egypt fell, then Jerusalem rose on the other side. That was the beloved city of the prophets. But when Israel fell as a great power, because that is the law of the pendulum, when the pendulum changed position, then the Roman Empire emerged at the other end. So that law of the pendulum has governed all of the great powers that have arisen. And really, if we observe carefully this, we can see that absolutely everything is subject to this law. We can observe how this apply the same for trees. They start growing and they became big trees with, I don't know, fruits or flowers or shady trees. But at one point, there start a process of involution. We see the same with the animals. We see the same with the human beings. We see how a human being grows, develops, reaches that stage in his life in which the person enjoys strength, youth, beauty, and even power. And the person feels as this is going to be eternal. But we see how inevitably at one point begins its process of decline. The years of old age, arrive, and with them disease, decrepitude, and death. So there we can observe this law. And we can also observe this law in the formation of a company, of any business. We see how that when it reaches that limit where it's living its best times, when it's given the best profitability, well, the pendulum begins to move in the opposite direction. And, well, the movement of this law is relentless. However, if we begin to understand what the real purpose of this law is and how this law moves also in our inner world, then we can use it to reach wisdom, to reach the truth. And, well, it's important that we start observing this law in our inner world. Remember, as without, so within. So if we study our own psychology, we will see that we also find this law of the pendulum moving in our interior, since all of our emotions, our thoughts, and our desires oscillate according to the law of the pendulum. All humanity in general is bipolar. We go from liking to disliking, from pleasure to pain, from being happy to being sad, and we don't maintain a balance. And this happens because all our psychological defects are bipolar. Each of them has two poles, the active pole and the passive pole. On one side, we, for example, find laziness as that lack of encouragement to do things. that need of being, sleeping or laying down without doing anything, or just watching series or chatting on, social media, whatever. And on the other side, we find the laziness, but as the encouragement to do many things, but things that are not really important or productive, like the encouragement to do thousands of things and then not having time or spirit for things that can lead us to awaken our consciousness. So there we find the laziness in its other pole. And on one side, we find, for example, greed as our hoarding or our stingy self. And at the other pole, we find the same greed, but as the expensive self, the one that wastes, the wastes all the resources. Is the greed on its two poles. Or at one pole we find sadness, at the other we find joy, and at one pole we find hatred, and at the other infatuations. However, we tend to confuse the passive pole of an psychological defect with the virtue. But what we must understand is that virtue is not found at either extremes. The virtue or the consciousness, what is the real thing, what is the truth, is only found in the center of the pendulum. Okay? And we often make the mistake of clinging to one pole of the pendulum, believing that by holding on tight, we can make it permanent. We cling to pleasure, we cling to infatuations, for example, and we don't see that with the same strength that we cling to seeking and experiencing pleasure, with that same strength, the pendulum will swing to the other side and we will have to experience the pain. So the more attachment that we generate towards a person or towards a situation or towards a thing, the more we suffer when we lose it, because the pendulum will always move. And the more we go to one extreme, we give more force to that pendulum, and then with more force it will take us to the other extreme. So the more someone gets excited about the expectation of something, the more they suffer when they can get it. Or the more you enjoy getting something, the more frustrated you get when you lose it. So there in your in our internal world, we can get to see how we are all the time being moved by this law of the pendulum. We can also see this in a couple's relationship. You see that when the relationship begins, both desire and mind, and emotion go through a process of ascent, falling in love, of idealization, of romance, of passion. However, we see that the more intense that process of infatuation is, when conflicts arrives, when misunderstandings come, with that same intensity, the arguments take place. With the same intensity comes the lack of love and even the hatred. And the common thing is that couples, if they stay together, they stay in that constant pendulum movement, moving from stages of romance to stages of fights and arguments, until big conflict occurs and boredom or betrayal, arrives, and then everything, the relationship ends, and they change partners, but just to continue in the same pendulum swing, but now in another relationship, without ever finding permanent happiness, without ever finding a stable peace, And the interesting thing is that this happens to us with everything. We spend our lives trying to achieve stability, trying to achieve happiness, trying to find a permanent peace. But since we mistakenly search for this, always clinging to one extreme of the pendulum, we never reach it, because we can never reach the truth. Now, the important thing, how this can be avoided, how we can really get to the truth. Well, actually, the answer is by observing and by reflecting, by looking at both ends of the pendulum. For example, in a couple relationship, observing everything that lead us to go to one extreme, everything that lead us to like, and everything that lead us to dislike our couple. And we need to work those aspects with the psychological depth, both extremes. When we are being moved towards infatuation, we must there eliminate from us all the psychological aspects that want to take us to, emotional, mental, and sexual overflow. We need to be eliminating that to maintain ourselves in the center. And likewise, when we see ourselves being moved by lack of love, displeasure, or even rejection, towards our couple, we must eliminate all these aspects with the psychological depth. Then the pendulum in that relationship will begin to lose strength. We will no longer pass through the center so quickly that we can see the truth. And as the swing of the pendulum slows down, as we are eliminating this extreme and eliminating this extreme, we will be able to see the truth, the midpoint, the balance more clearly. And we could even, through the technique of reflective meditation that we learned in the lecture number 22, we can bring the scenes of our life in which we experience in relation to any relationship, all these situations, and work on them. If we, for example, are single and we don't want to come to a new relationship to repeat all the same mistakes and situations, we must work on those relationships, relationships that we already have, and see ourselves, observe in all those lived scenes when we went in the relationship to one side of the pendulum, feeling everything was special, like that, in making like an idealization of that person, being so sexually aroused and everything. And we must eliminate all of that, finding all of those psychological defects, because they are the same ones that are coming to manifest in a new relationship. So we eliminate all of that, and we also see the other side when we start hating that person, when we feel bored about that person, when all of those things. We work on that, and we eliminate all those psychological defects that are also the ones that are coming to manifest in us in the next relationship. And by doing this work, we are going to start having a comprehension. We are going to start having an inner stability that will allow us to start having conscious relationships. And actually, we can do the same with any of our psychological defects, because all of them have two sides, and they take us to swim on the pendulum all the time. And we can, in the meditation work, find within us all those streams, work on them, and get to find the conscious. We get to find what is the truth, which is always in the center of the pendulum. The truth is always the center. The truth is the balance in observing both streams, reflecting, eliminating both pleasure and pain, joy and suffering, like and dislike, and keep ourselves in the present moment, in balance, in what is permanent. We are going to be living the truth from moment to moment. So actually, by practicing the psychological depth from moment to moment, and trying to stay in that balance, living the present moment, we are actually living the truth from moment to moment. So in the absence of pain and in the absence of pleasure is where we will find happiness. In the absence of hate and in the absence of infatuation, we will find the true love. True love is something that is eternal. True love is something that is permanent. And we will only know peace and true happiness if we get to eliminate the psychological defects that keep us going from one extreme to the other. But the egoic mind, resists balance. Actually, the ego finds balance boring. It prefers, to let off steam mentally, emotionally, or sexually, because that makes the ego feel alive. But then we will not be able to avoid, since this is a law, okay, impacting ourselves with the other pole, with the emptiness, with the pain, with the sadness, and feel it in the same magnitude in which we feel the pleasure. So this is the purpose of this law: make us experience both sides of the coin, so that when we reflect on them, we see that neither at one extreme nor the other we will be able to find the truth. Okay, but something that is important to know is that we also see this law of the pendulum in relation to our beliefs. When we believe in something or we don't believe in something, we are simply at one end of the pendulum or the other. We are simply holding on to a concept. We can place at the right stream of the pendulum the various pseudo-esoteric and pseudo-occult schools, all the religions, all the sects we can put on one side, and we can place all materialistic, Marxist, atheist or skeptical school at the left stream on this pendulum movement of beliefs. But we can see that the religious fanatic, due to some unusual event or due to some disappointment, such as, for example, praying to God for, let's say, the life of his sick son, and hoping to be, assisted after a life of religious devotion, but it turns out that the son dies, for example. Or another example, a religious fanatic, by being defeated in an argument by an esotericist, he can go to the other end of the pendulum and become an atheist, materialistic, and a skeptic. And you can find, on the other hand, the materialistic, the atheistic fanatic, that due to any unusual event, perhaps a transcendental metaphysical event, or in a moment or unspeakable terror, can take him to the opposite extreme of the pendulum and turn him into a terrible religious reactionary. Like when the plane is coming down, everyone is a believer. So we see that the truth is never being found in any concept, on either side, in any party, neither on the extreme right nor on the extreme left. But it happens that because we believe ourselves to be wise, we fanatically defend any position or theory without any verification, and it is only to find ourselves before the swing of the pendulum to change our position or to change our way of thinking. Neither the spiritualist currents nor the materialistic opponents will ever be able to lead us to the truth, since they are all based on beliefs, on concepts, not on direct experimentation or direct verification. And it happens that spirit and matter are actually two very debatable and very thorny concepts that no one really understands. If we are asked what is matter, we could give a concept. We can say, I don't know, that is everything that occupies space. Or if we are asked what is spirit, we can give one or many concepts. It is a consciousness, it's a universal energy, it is God, however we understand God, But these are just concepts, because the mind knows nothing about the spirit and knows nothing at all about the matter. Only when we get rid of all the concepts that we have. Only when we empty ourselves, we empty ourselves from all those concepts that we have in relation to one extreme and the other. The ones that have relations to spiritualism, every concept that we already have about spiritualism, everything that we think we know about that, about spiritualism, and we empty ourselves from all the concepts that we have in relation to materia, in relation to atheism, to materialism. When we get to empty ourselves and we start experiencing things directly, to make a direct verification of everything, then we will come to know the truth. For example, someone could tell us about astral projection. We can, for example, here in this self-knowledge course, watch the lecture number 3 and see the practice for astral projection. But that theory is going to be just a concept in which you can believe or not believe, And you can also get to or start filling yourself with thousands of other concepts about that to support one point, which is believing, which is thinking that everything I'm telling you is true, or to get to find 1,000 of opinions or concepts that support that all of that is false, that is not true. But as long as you don't go into the practice as many times as necessary until you get to verify for yourself the reality of astral projection and thus become that a truth in yourself, you are only going to be dancing between concepts. And that is what we do all the time. And we need to know that a concept is nothing more than that. A concept. Reality is not a concept, although many concepts can be forged about reality, they are not reality. But we tend to label all things and we form thousands of concepts about everything, and for that reason we stop experiencing reality. And from then on, we just see everything through the concepts that we have about reality. And we believe that the more concepts that we have, the wiser we are. But by never checking directly, we don't realize how all these concepts are what keep us from the possibility of really getting to know. Because the more concepts that we have, the more we have learned, but without checking. So more we will have to unlearn to really get to know. And well, we must, by hanging to all those unverified concepts, become very fanatic people. And we need to start understanding that the truth is not in beliefs. What we think or what we believe about something is not the truth. The truth is what we get to verify. And as long as we continue clinging to concepts, clinging to beliefs, defending them, we will never reach the truth. Neither in the stream right, neither in the stream left is the truth. Neither supporting this concept or the other. When we defend something according to our mind or, to what we think it is, we are actually becoming slaves to that concept. Fanatically, we tend to attack who don't think or believe what we do. That if I believe that God is in such a place, or that the truth is such a theory, that if I believe that this knowledge is the truth without having verified it, on the other hand, I tend to believe that it is false, but without verifying it. And there is our mistake. And so we defend and we go through life defending and rejecting lots of concepts, and we underestimate, those those who think differently, because we think that we are more intelligent, we're wiser, and we don't realize that we are only being that, slaves to a concept. That is not the truth, since the truth is out of all concept. That is why Master Jesus used to say, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The one that, at one pole criticizes the one at the other. Whoever is at one stream or the other believes that he has the truth. But the one in the center doesn't criticize, he understands. The one in the center doesn't believe that he has the truth because he is the truth. He already lived the truth. He is living the truth from moment to moment. So when we are arguing with another, judging and criticizing others, we don't have the truth. We are just polarized. So what is the truth? That is what is important. What is really the truth? Actually, when Master Jesus was asked what is the truth, he kept a profound silence. And when the Buddha was asked the very same question, he turned his back and withdrew. And with this action, both masters gave us a profound teaching that the truth cannot be conceptualized. That whatever I can say is the truth is not the truth, since the truth is only found in inner silence, in the absence of the psychological defects speaking. The truth is the unknown. What is unknown from instant to instant, from moment to moment. It is never among the swaying of theories and beliefs. The concept that the mind can forge about the truth is never the truth. And we must start removing from us this false idea that we are right, because we're not. And we must empty ourselves of all of our unverified concepts and seek the truth, but in direct experimentation, through our own experimentation. Given that the truth, as you can see here, must only be experienced, not believed, not assumed. Truth is something that we must experience directly. Like when you put your finger in the fire and you get burned. And now you know that the fire burns. You can be, for example, a child, and your mother can say to you, don't touch that you're going to be burned. And for you, it's like a concept. What is burning yourself? What is that? What does it feel? You don't know. When you go and you touch that thing that is hot and that you feel, the pain, you experience that directly. Now you know what is being burned, and you are not going to touch that ever again, because you already know the truth about that. Or when you swallow water and you drown, there you know. That is direct experimentation, okay? So, yeah, just like to finish this explanation. Where is the truth? The truth is always in the center of the pendulum, nor in one stream, nor in the other. We must begin by observing and recognizing when in relation to anything we are polarized, in relation to our concepts, to our beliefs, or in relation to our own emotions, our own thoughts, our own psychological aspects. Only when we are able to observe our inner pendulum, then we'll be able to observe and eliminate through the psychological death those aspects that keep us in one extreme or the other. The center of the pendulum is within ourselves, in the inner silence, when we are fully living the present moment in self-observation and psychological death. And it is there where we must discover and directly experience what is real, what is the truth. We will only find the truth there when we manage to eliminate the psychological defects, that manifest in our desire, taking us to one point or the other, in our minds, taking us to um, one point and the other, and the same with our emotion. And when we are doing this from moment to moment, staying in the center, living the present moment in this like reflection state, like this self-awareness state, there we can get to know the truth, because only consciousness can experience consciousness, and only through the psychological depth is that we release the essence, which is the real thing, and that essence can get to recognize the truth. So the truth has nothing to do what has been said or left unsaid, with that has been written or left unwritten. It only comes to us when the ego has died. We must understand that the mind cannot seek the truth, because the mind doesn't know the truth. The truth comes to us like spontaneously when we have eliminated all the undesirable elements that constitute the myself, the ego. And as long as our consciousness continues being bottled up within all our psychological defects, we will not be able to experience that which is the real, that which belongs, or that is like beyond, the body, beyond the affections, and beyond the mind. That is the truth. So we must learn to find like that critical point where the truth is, where the consciousness is. And that is in, as I was saying, living the present moment. The top of each oscillation of the pendulum, of course, when we believe that we have the truth, then it returns, and at the other extreme, when we are there at the other pole, think that we have the truth, it returns again and show us that we don't have the truth, that it is not found in any one of the stream. That is the profound teaching that is contained in this law of the pendulum. And the same we are going to find within ourselves, because we are there, we have this inner pendulum, and we are constantly being moved to our brain or towards our desires. We are faced with any situation, and we start thinking and overthinking about that. Or the pendulum goes down, and we start desiring this and desiring that, hating this, liking that, and we are moving all the time in that pendulum. And we are going to start finding the real thing from moment to moment when we start practicing the psychological depth, to stay in that balance, to stay living the present moment. When the mind start talking and talking, we eliminate that. When we start like projecting things, idolizing things, making concepts about things, we eliminate that. When the pendulum goes to desire, and we start feeling this, feeling that, etc., we eliminate that, and we work to stay all the time there in the center, just feeling the presence of our inner being, understanding this, that our hearts is like the temple where our consciousness come and manifest when we keep this like inner silence, this state of constant self-awareness. In that state, we are going to be able to see the truth, to experience the truth, to talk the truth, and to become the truth by working on ourselves, working in elimination of our psychological defects, and maintaining ourselves in the middle, in the center, where we find the truth. And well, this has been today's lecture. This is explanation about the law of the pendulum. If you have any question in relation to this topic, or to any topic of the self-knowledge course, you can leave your questions there in the chat, and I will be gladly solving any question that you have. Or you can contact me through the messenger of the page, and I will be gladly helping you with anything that I can, okay? And if you see this video in the Facebook channel, you can also leave your comments there, and I will be gladly helping you with any concern that you have. And I will leave you with this phrase to ponder. Of what use is of what use is it to a man to know thousands of theories if he has never experienced the truth? Well, that is like a profound phrase. And well, it's important to reflect on this. So we like encourage ourselves to stop believing, to stop thinking that we have the truth, and start experiencing the truth, finding this in the center of our inner pendulum. And well, now I want to invite you to our next lecture that here in this Facebook page is going to be next Wednesday. Yes. And we are going to be talking about the method to awaken consciousness. And we are going to be talking about the two consciousnesses, the subjective one and the objective one. Okay? So, this has been all for today. Thank you very much to all of you. I hope that this information will be useful for you for your inner work. And, well, see you the next time. Thank you very much and ciao, ciao.